Good morning, Algebra 2. I'm going to do a quick video on inverses of exponential and logarithmic functions. So we already know what an inverse is. We've been talking about it all year, that they are kind of undo each other. That's what an inverse does. And it essentially, when you're graphing, it changes the order pairs. So your x's become your y's in your inverse, and your y's become your x's in your inverse. But we're going to specifically look right now at how we do this algebraically. So the first step, we need to change f of x, which is just a fancy way of saying y, to an actual y. Then we need to switch x and y value of the equation. We're going to solve for y, and then we'll replace it with the notation for inverse, which is f to the negative first power of x. So let's start with number 1. So we're going to switch our x and y's. So we get, we'll blow this up so you can see it better. You get x is equal to 3y. So we're trying to figure out how we can get this y out of our exponents. Well, we know that we can change it to log form. So a lot of you like to rewrite this, so I will, so that the base and power on the left side. Then we can use our loop method to get our log. So this would become log base 3 of x equals y. Well, now y is by itself, so we've solved for y. So let's write that as inverse notation of log base 3 of x. And then we are done. Okay, so now let's look at problem number 2. So we're going to do it the exact same way. We've got to remember to switch your x and your y's, switch them. So now we've got to get this y isolated. So we need to take the log of both sides. So I'm going to rewrite this again and do my loop. So we get log base 2 of x equals y minus 1. So now we just need to add 1 to both sides. So we get y equals log base 2 of x plus 1. So let's make sure that we put parentheses around our x so that we don't think it's x plus 2 or x plus 1 is our log. So we can rewrite that in our inverse notation. And there we go. It's the inverse. Now let's do it where we're given the log. So if we're given a log, let's go ahead and switch our x and y's. X equals log base 3 of y. So this time we're going to do the opposite. We're going to change it into exponential function notation. So let's do our loop. So you get 3 of x equals y. And that's it. Now write it as in inverse notation. And then there's our answer. Okay, let's do another one. Last one. So again, I've got to switch my x's and my y. And now let's do our loop. So we get 4 of x equals y of y plus 2. Now we can subtract 2 to both sides. So we get y equals 4 to the x minus 2. So rewrite that. And we're done. So we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to do the same thing over here, and we can do either one, whichever one you want to change. You can either change the g of x And you can write it in log form, or you can change your f of x and write it in exponential form. I think I'm going to do on this first one, I'm going to change this f of x to exponential. So this becomes, well, we got to change it first. We got to rewrite it in where we switch our x's and y's. So now change it. We get, so these are going to be, let's make sure that we put parentheses around the right ones. So now, before we can take and change it into form, we need to get rid of this. We need to do something with this plus 1. So let's subtract it to the other side. Now that the log is by itself, now we can change it into exponential form. So we get 3 of x minus 1 equals y. So now, are they inverses of each other? Does this, let me switch colors here. Does this, is it the same as what we got up here? And the answer is yes. So they are inverses, yes. Inverses. All right, moving on to number 6. So now this time I'm going to change the g of x to the log form. So again, we need to change your x's and your y's, switch them. So now I'm going to say log 4 of x equals y. Are they the same thing? Is this the same as this log in our original? And the answer is no, they're not. They are not inverses of each other. That's all you have to do on this. Now let's move to graphing real quick. I'm going to try to do this quickly. I'll show you one, and then you can do number 10 on your own. So the thing that we need to do is we need to plot as many points as we can on our inverse so that we can see the shape. So we're going to just try to see as many points as we can get here. And then all we're going to do is switch our x and y's. So I see this point right here, which is negative 1, 0. I see this point, which is 0, 1. This point, 2, 2. See this one, 6, 3. And it would be nice if we could get somewhere at the bottom over here, which we can try to get close to, well, we know our asymptote is going to be, let's put our asymptote up there. It's going to be, your asymptote is negative 2. Do you guys see that asymptote right here? Negative 2. Okay, so if we're having a vertical asymptote at negative 2, on our inverse, we're going to have a horizontal asymptote at negative 2. So let's go ahead and draw in that first. That's probably going to help us the most. So now we're going to take our graph and we're going to switch our x's and y's. So we have 0, negative 1. So 0, negative 1 is right about there. 1, 0. 2, 2. And 3, 6. So now you can see as it goes towards your asymptote and then it goes up. So there you have it for graphing. I wonder if I have time to do one more. I'm going to save this one. I think that you guys get the idea. If you have any questions, I will be available tomorrow to answer them. Y'all have a good night. Bye.